if some writer catches on to the idea that like where you focus your attention is very important,
Mm,
you know, like
right.
for us, it's like a whole revelation. It's like, oh yeah, I have been just scrolling away and engaged in all this silly stuff. And maybe I really need, maybe it's really the quality of my life is dependent on where I focus my awareness. And if that's true, which I think any insightful person will accept, um, then the question is, where's the most important place I could place my awareness? Where's the most meaningful and fruitful place that I could place my awareness? And what Narada is saying to Vyas when he's feeling this despondency is, you haven't really given them the focus on the ultimate place to rivet their awareness, to bring them the highest good. And that is on the pastimes of Krishna, who is the origin of the cosmos, right? The cosmic manifestation emanates from him. And in the end, it all goes back into him. You know, he's the origin of everything. And he said this text, he said, learned circles, right? Those people that really understand things, they have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of all advancement of knowledge, in other words, where knowledge is all meant to go, right? The no doubt understanding of where jnana goes, where the deepest knowledge and the deepest understanding is aimed at, where including austerities that one may perform, like as a yogi, the study of the Vedas, the study of, you know, of the deepest knowledge, performance of sacrifice of what you give your life to, or the meditation, you know, on hymns, or the giving of charity, that it all culminates. And he says in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. That's the highest meditation. If you can rivet your awareness to anything, this is where it goes, and all good comes from it. Everything is included in that. That gives you life like nothing else can possibly give one life, and it reveals the deeper secrets about life and your existence.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator of the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Today is May 20th, 2025. This is episode 1605. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everybody. Really excited here. Really excited. We just had a beautiful morning program with His Holiness, Sachinandana Swami. I know it's top secret that he's here, but I can't contain myself. He's listening in the side wings right now. But also, we're excited for this weekend because the Wisdom of the Sages retreat is happening this weekend. And Kaustubha doesn't even know, but we have some very special guests. Rupa and Kumari are going to come and do kirtan with us, as well as some of our regular kirtan people. And we're going to prompt Kumari to dance as well for our evening programs Saturday and Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to Kaustubha coming down, and just looking forward to, you know, we spend a lot of time in a virtual world, and it's sort of cool. It sort of saved our butts when we were in the middle of the pandemic. But there's nothing better than getting together with people you love and meeting cool people who you've heard about and never met personally, or just discovering people and that you haven't met. And it's I really live for this type of thing. And even though it does get exhausting, and Mara will vouch, like, come on, Raghunath, you exhaust yourself during these events. They are, but they're exhaustingly wonderful. And you know what? If I'm going to leave my body one day, why not leave it at an event where great devotees are all around me? Maybe that's what I'm meant to do. Maybe that's how I'm meant to leave.
Maybe.
Hi, Kaustubha. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Okay. We're going to promise no one's going to leave their body at this event, but if they
Can't
do,
make that promise.
Yeah, I guess we can't make that promise. Wouldn't it be great, though? You could be like, oh, that was a great
If
retreat.
nobody died, I suppose it's kind
No,
of a
I'm
low
saying
bar,
if I died.
It might be a little traumatic for people, Raghu.
You know what?
Realistically.
They got to absorb our philosophy. They have to absorb our philosophy, and they'll be like, you know what? It was really crazy. You know, this big kirtan was going around. Raghunath got up and danced in the middle and just like dropped. And as horrible as it would be, how wonderful would that be? There's a lot worse ways. That might be the best way to leave your body. I know it's only 7 a.m. We're talking about leaving your bodies, but it just came up. Mara, any good announcements for us?
I don't have any announcements today.
Are we all filled at the retreat? I don't know if
I think there might be a men's space left.
a men's space or a ladies' space.
Yeah, there's.
But not many.
Yeah.
Like a bed.
Mm.
Okay. Any announcements otherwise?
No, that's all I got today.
All right, great. Wisdom of the Sages retreat is happening in India. We're looking forward to that. And it's going to also happen, you know, we haven't really announced it yet, but people usually stay on for the flower festival. And then Monday, we take a gang to Mayapur for a week. And that's really special. It's really special. We've been doing it the last few years. This will be our 3rd time we did that. And I wouldn't recommend this trip to everybody, but I would recommend it to people who've opted in that Krishna is my Lord. There's a lot of people who listen to the podcast that just get some inspiration from the podcast because these are spiritual truths, they're very broad truths. But there's certain people who have opted in and said, Krishna is my Lord, Kirtan is my path. For those people, Mayapur is like a Hare Krishna Disneyland, and it is quite wonderful. And so if you're interested in that, we haven't even posted it yet, but that will be happening, FYI. Kaustubha,
Yes.
sir, do you want to say anything, or should we dive right into today's nugget?
Let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay. Here it is. This is from George MacDonald. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, he was a writer and like a pastor, I guess, from Scotland.
Mm.
I had some notes. I don't think I have them with me. But I think they say he was kind of like the person that these later Christian writers like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and so on, they were all he was kind of the original that they all got inspired by.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Know that. All right, here's what we got. The words of the wise are as a living stream, carrying life to the desert places of the soul. One more time. The words of the wise, right, are as a living stream, carrying life to the desert places of the soul. I love this. You know, sometimes the soul feels dry. Sometimes I can vouch for that. I wake up, I was like, I have nothing to say to anybody. How am I supposed to get inspired? Like, you're showing up for your duties, you're trying to stay on track, but deep down you feel like, I'm on E. I have nothing to give to the world. And then sometimes you just hear some truth, a few words of wisdom, not like fluff, but something solid, like a current, right? And it's that kind that hits you where you need it. And it's like water in the desert of my soul. And it just sort of refreshes me. That's what the Bhagavatam is. It's like for me. And on a regular basis, it's not just like information, because we're living in an information age. We're overwhelmed with information, but this is like nourishment, right? Softens the heart, clears the dust, chips away at the plaque. Sometimes even one sentence from a devotee spoken with sincerity can shift my whole internal state. You know, and I think that George MacDonald, what the author of this nugget, George MacDonald, saying is, real wisdom just doesn't sound nice. It brings life back to the soul. It gets the soul reconnected. And an interesting caveat here is every stream has a source, a spring that it's coming from. So wisdom is just not wisdom in one sense. I'm getting tagged from Guru Maharaj. I'm getting tagged from the Param Guru, the Guru's Guru, and the Guru's Guru's Guru. We're getting tagged. We're getting inspired when truth is flowing through people but it's actually coming from a source. And the fountainhead of the source is Sri Krishna himself. And that those rivulets, they come in many streams and very broad creeks and then big rivers, but it's ultimately coming from God, and it trickles down through people, through the introspective, through the thoughtful, and through the pious, and it lands on us and brings us to life. And then by living with some integrity, we can also carry that stream with us and pass it on as it's been passed to us. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I can't help but think now this George MacDonald. You know, another interesting thing about him, Raghunath.
Tell me.
He's the original person that the song "Old MacDonald" was about.
Come on.
It was about him.
Old MacDonald had a farm.
Yeah.
E-I-E-I-O.
kidding.
Oh, you were just kidding. Okay. I love our real dry humor, because if you're in the dry humor gang, and there's a bunch of us, other people who don't know that humor, they're like shocked by it. I think Kaylee, our good friend Kaylee Lolita, was over the other day, and we had a satsang, and she did this dry humor to Mike Stone, and she just goes, "You've offended me," and just walked away. And then Mike Stone was like, "I don't know what I said," and it like threw him in a tizzy for like 45
There's an
minutes.
entire class on forgiveness.
After an entire class on forgiveness, and he goes, "I don't know what I said. I thought I was just saying something nice," and I said, and then later she was just like, "Oh, you were offended? That was a joke. Don't you hang out with Raghunath? This is his humor." It's just
Mike Stone was there.
Mike Stone. He moved up
Tell
here.
me that.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's talking about desert places in the soul, and you know, we have like, I'm appreciating where he's coming from. I think he's a person that's got like a lot of, from what little research I did on him and how he speaks, I get the feeling that he's got something spirit. He's a serious spiritual practitioner. At the same time, our Vedic teachings, our Upanishadic teachings, our Gita and all that, it kind of gives us more precise terminology. You know, so like he's talking about the desert places of the soul, and we would say the soul is like an oasis, like the soul is like never dry, right? The soul, but because we're focused on the mind, you know, when we detach ourselves from spirit, which is the soul, the self, and our awareness goes to the material, including the mind, that's where the desert places are. And what kind of what just, I don't know, surprises me, but just interests me in a way. You hear these people that, again, I'm not exactly sure when he lived, but I think it was probably like, maybe he was writing his books like at the turn of the century or something like that, you know?
Okay.
And so that's a long time ago. Or you go back to someone like a Henry David Thoreau, something like that.
Right.
They were living in a very different world.
Sure.
Not only wasn't there social media and smartphones,
There was no social media, you mean? When
there was
Thoreau was
no
around?
there was no television, no radio, no, you know, they had newspapers, and even that probably was like a little bit of a difficult thing to get. They didn't, you know, like in Thoreau's time, I don't know, you know, it was just seems like such a peaceful time. But he's saying like,
Are you kidding?
peace. What I
Peaceful?
mean by peace, I'm not talking about the war. What I'm talking about is peaceful in the sense of your senses are not being bombarded by information.
Okay, there you go. Peaceful.
Yeah,
We don't
and-
know. Information is exhausting.
You know, and you have someone like Thoreau saying like, "Oh, the world is so distracting. I got to go out to you know, this pond and live there because, you know, everything's so distracting." The world that we're living in now is just off the charts.
We probably can't
Distraction.
even perceive, you know, how overwhelming it is, because it's become the new normal.
Yeah, but you know, like I was just thinking, sometimes like I catch myself, and I imagine many of us probably do this. Like you're scrolling through some Instagram or something like that, and you're like, "This
So
is
you
stupid."
scroll.
You're saying, "This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid." What am I doing here? You know, it's like, what have I been doing for the past 5 minutes? This whole thing, this is, you know, when he says that carrying life to the desert places of the soul, I think we spend so much time lost it may be our occupation is like feels like a desert. It may be our relationships feel like a desert. Maybe our daily commute feels like a desert, and our scrolling and our media, and it does become like a desert where there's no life here. This is drying me up. Sometimes like you can see, like if you're scrolling or something like that, and then your phone goes blank or something like that, or if you're on a computer, and then you see the reflection of your own face, and it's just like dead. It's like desert. There's no life in it. There's no, and we can look into the faces of people, in our commutes and so on, and say, yeah, it is like a desert. He's saying that the words of the wise are like a stream. They're carrying life to it. And, he's, especially speaking in a spiritual context, he was like a man of the Bible, so I think the words of Jesus and the words of the Bible were like inspiring him. We're getting now to this place, the 10th Canto of the Bhagavatam. And, as we approach it, we really need to understand the context that this is the ultimate life-giving stream. That if you took the majority of people in the world that even know about it, I don't know if most, but at least people outside the tradition that are looking at it, they're going to think, oh, okay, they have these quaint stories. This Krishna, they're almost like children's stories. Mythology, they got their mythology. There's some nice lessons to learn there, maybe. But what we need a whole different perspective to approach this.
Right.
If you take, he's saying the words of the wise are a living stream. In our tradition, we would say that when it comes to wise people or great teachers, you take Vyāsa, he is the prototype. He's the ultimate. Like, he is the one that all the other sages are drawing from his contribution. And he's provided so much. The depth of the knowledge that's provided in his books is unparalleled, right? You go through all the Upanishads, all the Vedas, the entire, just if someone just did the Mahabharata itself, it's like, it's 10 times larger than the Iliad and the Odyssey combined, and it's just chock full of insight and wisdom and presented in the most captivating stories. He's given us all these different paths and all these different practices. He's giving us, all this technical ritual combined with astrology and and moral social codes and just like incredibly rich. Then he's given these spiritual teachings of the Upanishads that are just like incredibly insightful. They go deep into the mind and help us understand who we are in ways that no other literature had done. And then he's got his devotional teachings, which are really going it's so much more beautiful and meaningful, and it has everything that he provided before is built into it, but it gives the greatest life. It's the greatest living stream. And he had written all that, and he was feeling like he was in a desert. He was feeling like something's wrong.
Interesting point here.
Yeah.
After all that, you think, okay, well, you must be completely fulfilled.
Yeah.
But there's more.
Yeah, he felt something was wrong, and he was introspective. And this is all revealed at the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and he's trying to put his finger on it. Why am I not feeling fulfilled? Why am I not feeling satisfied? And Narada approaches him, who's like the ultimate sage. And Narada goes back to practically to the beginning of the universe. He's a son of Brahma, like the original being, and he is considered the sage amongst all the devas. He's Vyasa's teacher, And he says to him that basically what he says to him, you provided, there's no doubt you provided a lot of incredible literature, but you haven't gone right to the very core. You haven't, he says you need to directly glorify the source of it all, which is incredibly special. Like, in other words, just if some writer catches on to the idea that like where you focus your attention is very important,
Right.
For us, it's like a whole revelation. It's like, oh yeah, I have been just scrolling away and engaged in all this silly stuff. And maybe it's really the quality of my life is dependent on where I focus my awareness. And if that's true, which I think any insightful person will accept, then the question is, where's the most important place I could place my awareness? Where's the most meaningful and fruitful place that I could place my awareness? And what Narada is saying to Vyāsa when he's feeling this despondency is, you haven't really given them the focus on the ultimate place to rivet their awareness, to bring them the highest good. And that is on the pastimes of Krishna, who is the origin of the cosmos, right? The cosmic manifestation emanates from him. And in the end, it all goes back into him. He's the origin of everything. And he said this text, he said, learned circles, right? Those people that really understand things, they have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of all advancement of knowledge, in other words, where knowledge is all meant to go, right? The no doubt understanding of where jnana goes, where the deepest knowledge and the deepest understanding is aimed at, where including austerities that one may perform, like as a yogi, the study of the Vedas, the study of of the deepest knowledge, performance of sacrifice of what you give your life to, or the meditation on hymns, or the giving of charity, that it all culminates. And he says, in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. That's the highest meditation. If you can rivet your awareness to anything, this is where it goes, and all good comes from it. Everything is included. That gives you life like nothing else can possibly give one life, and it reveals the deeper secrets about life and your existence. And you haven't described that thoroughly. You need to describe that thoroughly. Mm. And so this means that the greatest teacher of all time has been preparing us for 9 cantos to enter into the greatest teachings that exist. And that's Krishna's pastimes. They're not just stories. They're the richest object of interest that exists, not just for interest, but by interest I mean it's the most fruitful. It gives the greatest benefit, the greatest benefit that you can get, and the most life-giving stream for the self that exists.
Reads like a fun story.
It's caught up in these stories. Yeah,
it reads like a fun story, but it's actually if this is all true, it's a glimpse into the spiritual realm, it's a glimpse like a window to the spiritual world from our temporary mundane world. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah. It's like even if our life appears rich and not monotonous and not, tedious from a material perspective, from the perspective of the 10th Canto of the Bhagavatam, actually all existence, even the life of Indra, in this material realm is a dry desert. So it's like it's like stepping out of some dull black and white, incredibly boring world and stepping into the full color, incredibly rich pastimes of loving adventure of Krishna. That this is what existence is meant for. You've been missing out on it. Even if you've learned all the jnana and become totally detached and practiced all this yoga and had mystical experiences, you still are entirely missing out on the point of existence until you've understood Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's Leela, Krishna's heart, Krishna's qualities. You haven't actually gotten to the point yet. And now he's going to bring us to that point. So in one sense, it opens up and Krishna's just like a little baby and he's crawling around and doing all these cute things. And it seems a little, this can't be the most serious focus of study. No. On a theological level, it is, because it's helping us understand the heart of God. There's nothing more significant or important. And he's revealing it by showing, look how vulnerable I can be for love. I'll appear as a little child, totally vulnerable, totally dependent, because I live for love. That brilliant thinkers will write chapters and chapters of commentary, quoting from philosophy, quoting from the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Vedanta Sutra to explain how significant this is. So we really need, I suppose what we're asking listeners is, as we come to these stories, they're fun and they're cute and they're kitschy on an external level. but try to take them seriously. That's what all of this Bhagavatam, we've been going at this for 5.5 years now. It's all building to this point of what we're about to enter. And it's
We've been going at
really
this for five and a
serious
half
stuff.
years.
Yeah.
It's 2025. It's halfway. Yeah, we have been.
That's do the
hard to
math.
believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you convinced yet?
I'm no mathematician, and we did start in 2020, but okay, let's dive into this.
Let's get into it.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyāsa, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki, by regular attendance and classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. And loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes. With the torchlight of knowledge, I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 24, Text 60. Supreme, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You were sitting so still.
Yeah, who's speaking now? I think we have Shukadeva Goswami speaking, huh? He's coming down. Okay, this is what's happened, right? This is the very end of the family tree. We were following these different branches of the dynasty of the moon. We've been following them for quite a few chapters now. And then a big name, the biggest name of all comes up. Oh, Krishna's born. Then Krishna appears. And the 10th canto will just be a long squirrel in a sense, right? One big, long offshoot to hear about this one supreme person. So now this next 60 through 67 will just be preparing us to open up into the 10th canto.
Okay. This is verse 60. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, with the cooperation of Shankarshan, Balaram, performed activities beyond the mental comprehension of even such personalities as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. For instance, Krishna arranged the battle of Kurukshetra to kill many demons for the relief of the entire world.
We read that yesterday, I think, yeah? Anyway.
To show causeless mercy to the devotees who would take birth in the future in this age of Kali, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, acted in such a way that simply by remembering him, one will be freed from all the lamentation and unhappiness of material existence.
There's that desert, right?
In other words, he acted so that all future devotees, by accepting the instructions of Krishna consciousness stated in the Bhagavad Gita, could be relieved from the pangs of material existence. It's interesting to think that devotees that you may know now may have been devotees thousands of years ago, and this is all preparing the stage for them to appear. Huh?
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Sure.
The way it's reading like this, simply by receiving the glories of the Lord through purified transcendental ears, the devotees of the Lord are immediately freed from strong material desires and engagement in fruitive activities.
Okay.
That's very interesting.
You want to read the commentary?
Sure. This is 62's commentary. When the devotees orally receive the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as enacted in the Bhagavad Gita and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, right? That's what we're doing now. They immediately achieve a transcendental vision in which they are no longer interested in materialistic activities. This happens, we find.
Yeah.
Thus, they achieve freedom from the material world. For sense gratification, practically everyone is engaged in materialistic activities, which prolong the process of janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. But the devotee, simply by hearing the message of the Bhagavad Gita and further relishing the narrations of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, becomes so pure that he no longer takes interest in materialistic activities. You know, it's interesting. If you have conversations with people that are not devotees, I've created a bubble that I surround myself with the devotees. It's just the way my life has gone. Sometimes I step out of that bubble, not with just like, and not just, it could be anybody, the plumber who's coming over, or even some very educated person that comes over. The conversation oftentimes just goes very low, very quick. And it's just like the stuff that comes out of people's mouth. It's almost shocking. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah, it's almost shocking that what people just talk about on a regular basis. But the devotee, by simply hearing this message of the Bhagavad Gita and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, further relishing the narrations of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, becomes so pure that he no longer takes interest in materialistic activities. At the moment, devotees in the Western countries are being attracted by Krishna consciousness and becoming uninterested in materialistic activities. And therefore, people are trying to oppose this movement. Something must have been happening at this time. But they cannot possibly check this movement or stop the activities of the devotees in Europe and America by their artificial impositions. Here the words Strotra Jalir Upasprisya indicate that simply by hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord, the devotees become so pure that they are immediately immune to the contamination of materialistic fruitive activities. Anya bilashita sunyam. Materialistic activities are unnecessary for the soul, and therefore the devotees are freed from such activities. The devotees are situated in liberation, Brahma, Bhuyaya Kalpate, and therefore they cannot be pulled back to the material homes and materialistic activities. It's interesting. Like, I wonder, there was something must have sparked Prabhupada
It may have been, this is towards the end, right? Because we're almost in the 10th canto. Prabhupada only goes 13 chapters into the 10th canto. So he's going to write 13 more chapters.
before he
only
leaves
going to
this world.
translate and comment on 13 more chapters. So this means he was probably working on this in 1977, probably the year he passed away, maybe 76. And, it may have been, he had passed through, of course, there was an important court case in the United States where it went up to a high-level court. I forget how high, but, there was court cases against the devotees saying they're a cult, they're dangerous, they're doing this, they're doing that. And, different scholars of Hinduism and so on kind of became witnesses in that case, and evidence was presented, and then the judge concluded this is a bona fide
religious path. Yeah.
Religious path. Okay, it has its ancient tradition. It's no different than what's going on in these other, in terms of what they do and so on. Their practices are serious spiritual practices, and everyone should have the freedom to. This is in our country. You're free to practice your spirituality in whatever way you want, and this is the way that they're choosing to do it. So let them do it. But I think what Prabhupada is saying here is he's saying that when people simply hear this knowledge, their lives change, and they become uninterested in the things that they were interested in before. It's that powerful. He's saying, these aren't just words that. That simply by hearing this message, you lose a taste in the material. What did this verse say was powerful again? Right? Simply by receiving the glories of the Lord through purified transcendental ears, the devotees of the Lord are immediately freed from the strong material desires and engagement in fruitive activities. Now, someone may say, I don't believe that. I don't believe that simply hearing this has the power to do that. And what Prabhupada is saying is, no, I have proof. Because when that happens, when you become free from your strong material desires, the rest of the world starts to look at you like you've got serious problems.
Sure.
So people were looking at his followers who had begun the practice of bhakti yoga by hearing Bhagavatam from him, and they were walking away from their previous lives. And everybody's saying, this is bad. Prabhupada's saying, no, it's good. And this is the proof that what these texts are saying is true, right? you hear this and it changes your life. Now, of course, in what he was talking about, you know, at that stage of bhakti's existence in the Western world, if you got into it seriously, you were likely to move into a temple, shave your head, put on orange robes, etc. So people were looking like, my God, you know, like
Right.
these people.
And it was the time of real cults in America, and
Yeah, I suppose.
as well as you know, religious leaders, and then some nefarious cults, and then within our own movement, you had sort of, you know, nefarious things sort of happening, because that's what happens when you get a bunch of teenagers together living in communes. Someone is always stepping out of line.
But in any case, I think the point that Prabhupada is making is this stuff does work. If you actually, this is very powerful content, right? You know,
Sure.
everybody talks about content nowadays, right? Like the quality of the content that you're putting out. You know, you got to
Yeah, I'm a
put out good
content creator.
content.
What do you do for a job, Kaustubha?
Yeah,
I'm a content creator.
Yeah, so it's
That's
like,
silly.
well, I mean, and whatever. But the point is like, again, what's the most potent content? You know, Vyāsa was putting out a lot of very potent content, but
Vyāsa was a content creator. He was the original content. He was the original influencer.
He is, and Narada says to him, "You haven't put out the most important content, the most powerful, potent content yet, for people to engage their awareness and for people to bring their attention to. And when you do bring your attention to it, it frees you from your strong material entanglement." It relieves you of your strong material desires. This, you know, other yogis up until that point, they might think of, no, the only way to do that is to leave your family, to leave your home, to leave your occupation, to go off and live in a cave, to engage in practices of austerity, to go into some kind of deep yogic, incredible self-discipline and enter into stages of trance, and it's nearly an impossible thing to do. And what's being revealed here, what Shukadeva Goswami, the highest level transcendentalist that everybody gets, he's walking around naked in trance practically all the time. He's saying that, no, the most potent way that you can get there is just bring your awareness to hearing these stories about Krishna. Everything's in them. Everything that you need to become free of your material entanglement is in them, and more. So don't doubt their potency. Don't take this stuff seriously. This is really, really strong, powerful stuff that we're getting into. If you get into it and you come in and listen to it every day, it's going to change your life. It's going to reprogram your entire mind. It's going to lift you up. It's going to, or if we want to look at it the way that George MacDonald was going to say, it's going to be like a rush of life-giving, you know, water into the desert of your mind and heart.
Yeah. Institutions and communes aside, if you're just sitting alone in the privacy of your own home and you read the first canto, the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it's like nothing you've ever read before. You know, I guarantee it. It's like paradigm shifting. I got a good story for you. I don't know if I should tell it now, but I'm gonna hold it.
You can't do that.
I'm gonna. Well, all right. You want me to share it with you? It's a good story.
Well, I hope I'm not going to be.
No,
don't make me
story.
regret this, Raghunath.
No, I'm not gonna. You're not gonna regret it. You know, when Shelter first started, when the band first started, so we were sort of like, you know, zealous ministers. What's it called? What do you call a Christian
Evangelist?
Evangelist. We're evangelists of the Krishna consciousness. And so we went from like being a straight edge band, then I like sort of disappeared, I cocooned. Then I came back out with Shelter and all my friends were brahmacharis and the band was devotees. And we started being evangelical preachers from the hardcore scene and of the gospel of the Bhagavad Gita. And at that one time, you know, there was a very big magazine called Maximum Rock and Roll, and I was friends with the owner of the magazine, and he was an old man. He was 50 years old back then. That was old because we were
very old for that scene.
We were 22 years old. It was very old for that scene. He was a communist. He was a meat eater. He hated God, but we were buddies. But when I became a devotee, he got so upset with me, and he did this interview with me, and it was a really sort of a pivotal interview because, it was at the time when Youth of Today was very big, and he just wanted to discredit me. And I felt like as a friend, a betrayal, because what he did was between the commentary, he would write things about me. Like, you're not really supposed to do that in an interview. You just let the interview, but it was so chopped up and edited that it was a little inappropriate that he just sort of commented on it. So anyway, after that, right after my interview, he had some interview with a girl who's to clarify his point, how the Hare Krishnas are a cult. He had interviewed with this girl who said, yeah, my boyfriend was in a cult too. He got sucked into the Krishna cult. We saved him from that. We had him deprogrammed, and now he's healthy and happy, and we're in love and stuff like that. So it was a real smear campaign against Krishna consciousness, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, etc. So anyway, I never met that guy. And on our first show, all these, a lot of people in the punk scene were anti-God. That was just sort of part of being rebellious. So when Shelter came out, it provoked, as much as we were zealous, there was a bunch of people who hated what we were doing. And I remember the very first show we played in Connecticut, there was all these people, like, some people threw meat at us on stage. Some people handed out anti-God things and anti-Krishna flyers. In the meantime, we were distributing Bhagavad Gita. So it was like this, there was just like debates everywhere. It was quite exciting. And and very confrontational at our first show. And it was a packed show with, maybe 1,800 people. And it was going on all night. And finally, one guy in a parking lot came up to me. And he just goes to me, and he looked sort of very normal, didn't even look hardcore. But he goes to me, hey, and he came up with me on a detail, and he said, your guru Prabhupada, a lot of his God brothers didn't consider him a pure devotee. And I said, well, he did spread the holy name all over the world, practically speaking. So whatever he did, it was pretty powerful. And then he came up with some other weird fact. He said, he mentioned some guru later who did something scandalous. This guru did something scandalous. I said, so what? What does that got to do with the truth of the teachings? Because someone does something scandalous? Just because, suppose you're straight edge and then all of a sudden you're not straight edge anymore. Does that make straight edge, the philosophy, scandalous? And then he switched the subject again. He said, oh, did you ever hear that Bhakti, naming some saint that ate meat or some like little tiny weird details. And as he was talking to me, the sleeve of his shirt pulled up. And I started to notice he had like these black ink tattoos all over his arm.
I thought you were going to say he had like a notes written there. That he was
No. Meaning he looked very normal, if not conservative. But underneath his shirt, no one had tattoos back then, for the most part, unless you were sort of from that hardcore scene. And I realized this must be the guy who got deprogrammed that the girlfriend wrote the article about.
Okay, right.
Because he's got all these weird points, enough to try to, if you don't know enough about this, enough that some deprogram could try to break your faith with, but it was all flimsy. And immediately when that clicked into place, I stopped and I just said, listen, you seem to know a little bit about this philosophy, or you wouldn't even be coming at me with these questions. Are you saying to me, I said, have you ever read the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or part of it? And he just stopped and he said, with a very grave face, and he goes, yeah, I've read it. I've read the first canto. I said, okay, you've read the first canto. So are you saying that Prabhupada should have never come to America, should have never translated that book? That book should have been left in Sanskrit in some type of like ancient code, and we'd be much better off without that book. Are you saying that that book has no practical value in anyone's life, if that's what you're trying to tell me? And everything shifted in this guy's face.
Really?
And he just said, no.
I'm glad that he did.
This is what he said. Listen, I love the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. That book changed me. I didn't write that article. My girlfriend wrote that article. I just don't know what to believe anymore.
Oh.
It was so almost like beautiful, but it's sort of like just the guy cracked. And that's the potency of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. If you read that book in the privacy of your own home, it is so powerful.
Oh, Raghunath, I read that, I quoted that verse about where Narada was saying that learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of knowledge, etc., is the descriptions of the Lord who's defined in choice poetry. And if we go just a couple verses before that, it relates to what you were saying. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. I think this is what I was looking for. One who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. You see, this was what Narada is telling Vyāsa at this point is, you've talked about karma, you've talked about jnana, and these are steps forward in spiritual life, but bhakti is a whole different thing. Bhakti is where it all goes to, and bhakti is its potency and its power and its beauty are far beyond everything else that you've taught in depth in these earlier books. So much so that if you even come to bhakti and practice it for a little while and you're just a beginner, and then one way or another you get steered away from it, he's saying that the effect of it doesn't go away. He says, one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there's no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. And then he's going to say this. My dear Vyāsa, even though a devotee of the Lord sometimes falls down somehow or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
He read that Bhagavatam, he had an experience, and no matter, and this crazy, insane effort was put on this young person, right? The real brainwashing. Let's steal him away. Let's
steal him away, isolate him, drill him with little details of what things, how things can be wrong.
Try to create doubt in his mind. And
I've had friends.
Kind of,
you and I have had friends that have been, quote, deprogrammed, saved from the cult, where they and it's the most cult-like thing. It can never. I don't know if it can even exist anymore. It was so illegal.
Yeah.
You kidnap a person. Your parents pay someone to kidnap you, bring you to a cottage in the forest, and then our good friend Abai,
right.
He was like the guys just started smoking pot with him.
They try to get you drunk. They try to get you have sex. They try to get you.
They relish things like, oh, sex is great. I can't believe these guys aren't letting you.
They even have sex in front of you. I mean, they're doing things like that.
Real weird stuff.
Yeah. Anyway. But Abai, I believe, he drank them under the table and walked out.
He said he told me something funny. He goes, before I was a devotee, I used to smoke pot, and they said, "Come on, Abai, we know you like pot." And I said, "Well, what did you do?" He goes, "Well, I smoked them under the table, and I walked out the door."
Oh, didn't that guy show up, listen to the podcast or something, like years later or something?
Yeah, years later. I think he was sort of connected with the podcast too. I've got to find him again.
If you're listening,
he was a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy. And it's one of those things. The Bhagavatam touches your heart. Yeah. And you can't let it go again. And that guy, from my story, was a very, very sincere guy. And I get it. I even get his girlfriend. It's shocking when people all of a sudden, you don't want to do the things we used to love to do. We used to love to go swing dancing, and now we don't swing dance. We used to go, whatever we did. We used to love going out to this burger joint. Now we can't go to the burger joint anymore. You used to love, now you want to wear a robe and dance around. And if you can't get into that, or if you don't have that realization like that's a cool thing, then you start to think like, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, they're nuts. They're losing their mind. I get
We
it.
all need
And
to try to
especially back
understand each other.
then, Krishna consciousness was a little bit more cloistered, and it was a little bit more us and them.
Mhm.
You know, I was joking, with Maharaj yesterday. Like back then, there was like 3 words we used. If you were not in the tight circle, can you name those three words, Kaustubha? They're pejoratives that devotees used.
Fringy.
Fringy. Like if you were sort of into Krishna, but sort of, you were called a fringy.
Friend of Krishna.
Now, that's the next one. That was a positive spin on. Well, they're fringies, but we don't want to call them fringies. That sounds bad. We'll call them a folk member, meaning he might still smoke pot, but he does, he comes to the temple on Sunday. They
Folk
are
means-
folk members. It means a friend of Lord Krishna. You're not a devotee. You're a friend
He's
of
not
Lord Krishna.
against.
Yeah. And then there's, of course, the biggest
Blooped?
one ever was he's blooped. Blooped means he was once a strict devotee and now he's just gone off the deep end. He's blooped. So those are the 3 ones. Now it's sort of like everybody's somewhat blooped. Everybody sort of, very few people live in an ashram. Most people, we have a big congregation. Most people on Zoom. We may be considered by the Hare Krishna 1.0 that we are blooped, fringies, or folk members.
There's
I
a lot
wouldn't
of us
mind
out
being
there.
I wouldn't mind being
Hey,
a friend of Lord Krishna at this point in my life.
I just want to be. I was just.
Krishna considers me a friend. I consider that like material success or all spiritual success.
I was telling Raghunath yesterday, we discovered something recently that somehow when we registered on Apple Podcasts, that it must have been my mistake, that somehow I registered it twice with like 2 different URLs,
Yeah.
which meant that like all of our statistics are all like kind of diluted because of that.
Because if you go to Wisdom of Sages, like the Apple Podcast, you'll see one with like 1 million podcasts on it, and one with like 9 or 15
No,
podcasts.
I don't think that's right. I don't think that's
It
right.
is right. I've been
No.
telling you this for years, and you just discovered it
No,
yesterday.
you never told it to me once, but
Did.
But no, because it's not just like 9. There's like lots of people. It gets big statistics. So like we were thinking like 10,000 people were listening a day, but it may be more like 15 or 17. I don't know. We got to figure this out.
Yeah.
But there's
We're
like a
trying to
lot
get
of
to the
people
bottom of
listening
this.
out there. There's a lot of blooped friends of Lord Krishna out there. Anyway,
Okay, it's
we'll
time
work
for the
on that.
We're overtime, sir. We got to end
We
this.
started a little late.
We started a little late. Yeah.
You ready for some takeaways?
Yes, Miss Mara, please. What's on your mind?
Hmm.
What you learn from today's show, Mara?
I got some good stuff for you to take with you. Bhagavatam is like water in a desert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Real wisdom revives the soul.
Ooh, I like that.
Overwhelming distraction is the new normal.
Overwhelming distraction is the new normal. You don't even realize how overwhelming it was. Even the city, if you think about this, New York City 100 years ago, maybe a little bit more. There's like horses walking around, lots of horses.
Horses.
You know what I mean? You got a horse, you got more tree-lined streets.
There's still some horses walking around.
There's
there.
still tree-lined streets.
Okay, it's not changed. Are you guys trying to challenge me on this one? You're saying New
There are a
York
lot-
hasn't changed in 100
There
years.
are a lot more horses back then.
There was more
There were
horses. Give me a
more
break.
horses. More horses. Our quality of life is dependent upon where we place our awareness.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By remembering Krishna, one is freed from unhappiness.
Just think of children. Just think of a child in the backseat of a car when you were a kid.
Okay.
What would they do?
Distract
gonna-
you.
No, they just look out the window. If you were a child, you're just looking out the window. It's raining.
Right, now you got to put a
dripping
screen
down.
in front of them.
Yeah, now it's like they got games. They're playing. Their brains are. We think, oh, now they're quiet. It's so much better.
They just used to look out the window like a vegetable.
They were like mindful. Occasionally wave to the car behind us. Wave to the car. Watch the water drip from the window. Just sit there. I drove across the country with my kids pre-screens.
Mm-hmm.
The entire way. They just sat there.
They were
They
quiet.
just didn't cry, didn't
They
fight.
didn't
just sat-
distract you.
No, not at all. They just, when they were toddlers, they just felt sort of contained,
Yeah.
you know?
I have a memory. Anyway, it's a bit of a squirrel.
Tarun on the other hand. Okay.
Although True always has fun word games that we play when we're driving places.
We play fun. Yeah,
You know.
we play trivia.
Mm. All right. You're missing out on existence until you understand Krishna's pastimes.
Yeah.
Vyāsadeva is the original content creator and influencer.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
And
I like that. He's the thought leader. He's the origin of all this content.
and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam touches your heart and transforms your life.
Oh, that's a positive one.
Yeah.
Very good, man. Thank you.
Music? There we go.
Music. Hey, everybody. Floridians especially, I'm going to teach 2 workshops in Palm Beach, Florida, May 31st. If you're from Florida and want to check out a live class, it's like a bhakti-infused yoga class, chanting and philosophy. Come check it out, Palm Beach, Florida. Also, yoga teacher trainees interested in becoming a yoga teacher trainer? Change your life. You can do it. Go to Raghunath.yoga and check out the trainings for January at the Govardhan Eco Village, along with Kirtan training. That's all happening. And of course, that bumps up to the wisdom training. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thank you,
People
Maharaj,
are
for
asking what my
listening.
squirrel was.
Huh?
You weren't
Oh,
listening
asking
at the time. No, I just have this one memory of being a kid in the car. I think I must have been 11 years old. And, you know, my family, we never really went on vacation. We just go visit my grandparents, like in Pittsburgh.
That was fun.
And we're coming back, and we're like in traffic. And we're kind of entering the New York area again. And we're playing music. And somehow, you know, my sister must have been 13 and I was 11.
Imagine baby Kaustubha.
And my parents, I guess, were gracious enough to like listen to like a rock station, like whatever it was, PLJ or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Police record had just come out, first Police record,
Oh, yeah.
and it was playing that song. You know that song?
We're all spirits in the material world.
I can't. No, the first record. I can't stand losing. I can't stand losing.
Yeah, I can't stand losing.
Can't stand losing you. And that song is incredibly repetitive. You know, it's like,
What did you say?
and I think you know
What did you say?
the song is incredibly repetitive.
Yeah.
But I guess my parents were playing it so that the kids would be happy or whatever. And I just, at a certain point, my father just got like totally frustrated. Enough of this. You know, he just like, the song was just driving him crazy. You know. But I guess there always have been ways that parents are trying to keep their kids occupied. But now it's crazy. Yeah, you got to give a kid a screen and like give them a whole entertainment system when they're in the back of the car.
Yeah. Well, you know, I used to watch. My parents used to just have me watch TV. Go watch TV. Parents were like, "This is great." They just shut up and sit there, and it was like considered a good thing because we would shut up and just. And look at me now. My brain is.
And look at me now.
I've
Look at the
imbibed
results.
so much television.
Look at the result.
I turned out pretty good. All right, beautiful people. Thank you for joining us. If you joined late and I didn't say good morning, good morning. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day. Let the magic continue to flow. And a maha